the volume.
We are controlling the broadcast.
For the next hour we will control all that you hear.
You are about to experience the knowledge and insights of the Media Mothership.
Okay, hey, you're listening to a clapper. Edge Radio, 99.3 FM. This is Media Mothership on your wonderful listening station, Edge Radio.
Well, it's a broadcasting station and you listen to it.
Yeah.
It's not a station that listens. You listen to the station.
That's right. Well, at the moment, I'm desperately just trying to get my headphones to work. Okay, so here on Media Mothership, we explore... Media?
Mothers and shit.
Actually, that's a good question. There we go. Now I've got stereo on. I had something on cue.
Oh, okay.
So now headphones on stereo. So, yes, do we do anything? We do tons of media today at 4 o'clock p.m. on Hobart.
On Hobart.
We do a ton of media discussion, so we're going to be looking at AI, of course.
Of course.
To the surprise of no one. Video games, a early 90s movie, potentially, starring Andrew Dice Clay. And, my favourite piece, which I might actually bring a bit earlier, which is the classic thing of, can it run Doom? Right?
Yeah.
And this is the latest kind of fun, bizarre object that's had Doom running on it, which I'll try and figure out where the audio is to queue up when we get around to it. So we've got a lot of media. Is there any mothering going on there? Well, actually, the first story could segue into a bit of a nanny state.
Oh, okay.
So
Yes.
I reckon there's a bit of mother concept there. And ships. Well, yes, the second story involves science fiction.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Spaceships.
Wow.
All right, so all that and more here on...
Not much more, but...
Media Mothership. All right, you're back on Media Mothership. On Edge Radio, 99.3 FM. As well as on YouTube and Twitch, we're on a 13-second delay.
Wow.
I'm figuring out on YouTube and Twitch. So gosh knows, if you do post a comment on YouTube or Twitch, do give us 13 seconds to respond to it. Here we go. Yeah.
It's great radio.
Well, I'm just curious to see if there's image. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
So we're on 30 seconds delay. You can message us on there, or you can SMS us on 0488811707 if there's something pressing you would like to discuss with us.
Well, who are you?
Thank you. I'm your host, Dr. Craig. And
Yeah.
who are you?
Well, you say.
You're Lord Taylor.
Yes. And here is my verification of that.
Really? You've
Yeah.
got a... This says, this card certifies Lord Taylor Lidstone is the owner of an estate in Appin, Scotland, and is entitled to assume and use this title and style of Lord of Glencoe. And identification on the back. I'll wave that in front of the camera for a bit. Oh, it's on a 13-second delay. I'm not seeing it. Yeah. Okay, I'm assuming it's there. Great. Wow. Well, I look forward to seeing you use that at the airport in an attempt to board a flight.
It's really good, though, because it's a, what's it called? Where you've... I can't remember the name of it.
Flight card?
No. Like, an area, a wilderness area.
Right, yes.
That's like a public area sort of thing. And because of you hold this card, you can put whatever you want on that plot of land.
Do you... Because, yes, people could put a park bench.
Yep. Park bench.
Obviously within some...
A little gazebo, whatever you want.
Yeah, you're not going to fly an offensive flag.
No.
Yes. Talking... Well, do you have any ideas what you'd like to put up there?
I'd like to put a monument to K-pop.
Of course, Lord Taylor does the K-Pop Unlimited show with DJ CJ.
Yeah, he's a wily character. That
Wily
one.
character from 5 o'clock immediately after this. Cool. Well, talking of doing inappropriate things and trying to avoid them.
Okay.
First article for today is Google pausing their Gemini image creator after it was being accused of racism against white people. So this, of course, is, we've got Bing and Bing Chat, and you can get Bing Chat or Copilot, actually.
Yeah, that's right. Copilot is
That's
what
right.
it's
Sorry,
called, yeah.
it's Copilot. And that can create images. There are various AI image creation.
DALL-E, Stable Diffusion.
Stable Diffusion. Now the big, I guess, search engines have, come up with either their own version or co-opting in some way those existing engines. So Google got a lot of hoo-ha about their initial launch. I don't know if you've used Google's Gemini AI.
I actually haven't used Gemini. I used Bard beforehand, which is what Gemini used to be called. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of renaming.
For no reason, actually.
So what's interesting about this, though, so the article goes on to talk about how Google's pausing the ability of its AI chatbot Gemini to generate images after people had been asking it to create images of what, I guess, in terms of the typical history of images, are considered to be white, heteronormative, well, not even heteronormative, white, historically white people.
Yeah.
Like Vikings and Nazis. Right? So people had been giving the Gemini chatbot instructions to create images of Nazis and British kings and not Vikings. And
Not Vikings.
not Vikings. And what's been interesting here is that they've found it's been doing a kind of racial diversity and gender diversity of responses. So a lot of black medieval British kings, a lot of black Nazi soldiers, and black Vikings. Yeah. And this caused this huge... I mean, it's really interesting. If you look at YouTube, there's all these videos that are basically, it's that culture war that exists at the moment between conservative commentators and what I would argue straw man arguments against woke culture. All right, so this issue of Google Gemini image generator not featuring white people in historically conventionally perceived white roles like Vikings, Nazis, and British kings, right?
Those are the three main white.
Oh yeah, they're the top 3 Google searches on any white supremacist YouTube or Google image search generator, has basically provided all this fuel to the fire of this woke straw man argument. So they've basically been complaining here that, this has revealed Google's wokeness. Look, I'm not going to play. I found some horrid little examples from Sky News and, all your top 10 conservative commentators. That's all. I mean, in fact, there's nothing I found on YouTube on the quick search I did that was trying to have a debate about what's going on here, or the kind of hypocrisy underpinning it. That is that there's been a long history of these image searchers, basically not being able to portray anything that's not, massively mainstream and dominating culture, white narratives of society and history. So, it's I'm not going to play any of those clips because, I don't find them fun. But what's interesting here is, so Google's reaction, and they've said that they're working to address this recent issue with Gemini's image generation feature. While we do this, they're pausing the image generation of people and reassess an improved version soon. So the company initially addressed the controversy, which caused wide outrage amongst the anti-woke crowd. So again, this is this culture war. Yeah. where they're looking for anything that they perceive as woke culture and ramping up the argument around it. So the anti-woke crowd was kind of complaining to Google and have been complaining that this is also inaccurate in terms of history and so forth. But I wonder if that's the case. One of the things I like asking ChatGPT or any AI is what would a deconstructionist say of this? Because I always think deconstructionism, which is a fun theory, which basically takes these ideas of oppositions or binaries and tries to say, well, what are the assumptions within this opposition that it's setting up? And, it set up these really interesting questions in terms of asking yourself from this outrage of anti-woke commentators who are saying, here we have an example of clearly a kind of woke agenda. What is historical accuracy to begin with here, right? I mean, there definitely have been, and particularly for Vikings, who are, one of the interesting things about Viking culture, if we're looking from like the 600s on, during the raiding and pillaging and
the fun era,
expanding of Viking. That's right. If you're watching Netflix, you're watching all the fun TV Viking shows. And certainly with your Scottish ancestry or connection now, you'd know that many people from Scotland, Ireland, the UK have Viking DNA, right? Many people say that one of the actual things that people get DNA tests on is to find out, do they have any Danish or Viking ancestry? So clearly, I think the idea that Vikings are all white is actually kind of misleading in terms of the history of Viking culture, which spread itself out not only in, predominantly Anglo-Celtic Saxon white spaces, but also throughout the Middle East, throughout into Russia, the steppes, the Mongolian horde space. So you had an immense amount of racial diversity amongst Vikings. So I do think this idea of historical accuracy is a little misleading. And similarly with Nazis, Japan was part of the axis of World War II. So I would say there would be Asian Nazis. SMS in now. So I do think it raises some interesting question about who decides what historically is accurate, right? I mean, we didn't have any photos. We don't have any, in terms of that type of dominant story has been passed on from, the winners, the victors, and some stories have been lost from that. In fact, I'm reading this really fascinating story at the moment called African Samurai, the story of Yokusuke is the name of this really fascinating case of this African slave who then became a kind of part of the Jesuit mission to Japan in the I want to say 1500s, 1600s, right? During the Sengoku Jidai period, the Warring State period, and this African bodyguard of the Jesuit priests in Japan was given to Oda Nobunaga, who was the ruling shogun during that period, to assist in the Jesuit mission's expansion into Japan. And this African bodyguard became incorporated into the Oda Nobunaga kind of samurai system.
He's got a good shadow sword.
Oh, in a game?
Yeah.
This is right. So this figure was largely forgotten about. That there was a black samurai that basically went from slave to bodyguard to the highest rank at that period in Sengoku Jidai Japan, and had been largely forgotten about, but has since been remembered during the 60s, 70s, 80s, and now today. And there's this sense of, again, this idea of historical accuracy. That, we have this idea that all samurai are Japanese. There are moments in history where there was Adam's character, the white English guy in the 1600s who was made a samurai by Tokugawa Ieyasu.
Oh, I know his name as well. He has a fan attack.
What game is this?
The Samurai Warriors.
Samurai Warriors. Well, it's an entry point. Anyway, so yeah. So what is historical accuracy? So I think actually, in a way, I think this whole discussion's wrong in terms of it's about basically attacking a alleged woke argument that is against normative white culture, to instead saying, well, actually, what is historically accurate? Is there more diversity here that has been forgotten, or that could be? Maybe this Gemini AI has been able to tap into forgotten history.
So what would you say if you, did a search, generated an image of an African king? Would it come back with a white person because historically Britain was the king of Africa? Do you think that would ever happen?
I mean, I think that's...
Of certain parts in Africa, I mean.
Yeah. I mean, and I think that's maybe the other side of the coin here, that equal to the hallucination problem, I guess, that we're getting to here. I mean, I think there's a long history of, in fact, the other problem being dominant, that is that most searchers had been erasing any black identity or non-white identity in image searches, that it was predominantly white. So clearly, I guess what's coming up here is that this was the attempt to correct the fact that all of the AI training for image that most of these programs have been doing have featured largely white culture, because that dominates the internet environment.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of a knee-jerk reaction, because it's like, then you just, if you wanted to generate a white Viking, you would say a white Viking, or a black Viking, or an Asian Viking, if you wanted to change it.
Well, I think the article's saying that even
if you leave it open, then
yeah.
it can do whichever one, because it's been left open.
Well, I think, and I think the debate, because it's been pulled, you can't check it and verify it, because a lot of the commentary in some of these conservative anti-woke arguments are saying that, even when they attempted to do these prompts to say, it must be historically accurate, it must not feature, ethnicities and racial identities that are not part of that history, it was still getting this kind of racial diversity. So their argument is, even with those prompts, it was unable to do it. But again, in the comments, so this is in Gizmondo, what's interesting, the comments kind of talk about some of this in terms of saying, if you have a look at what the root cause of this refusal of the AI to do this, it would be interesting. What's interesting here is identify what's stopping the AI. Because in the comments later, someone points out that they were trying to do something similar with nerds and get the AI to create, this is Copilot, so this is Copilot's, the Microsoft version, to create images of nerds without glasses. But it continually put glasses in there.
If you're a nerd, you have to have glasses. That is the rule.
Yeah. So again, one of the things there that asks is, what's going on here? What's blocking the AI from being able to address this issue, that even with clear prompts, its search of nerds is so heavily integrated with glasses that it can't break that training.
Well, I was a nerd without glasses, so might drop on that.
That's right. You're not represented. Your identity is not represented in the AI's version of what a nerd is. So again, I think there's a lot of other interesting angles to take to this question than simply this is part of an anti-woke conservative.
One of the funny things I think of is that, according to Hollywood, the main defender of the Great Wall of China was Matt Damon.
Well, I mean, many people point out that the depiction of Jesus is so historically inaccurate. That it's this white bearded guy, that more than likely he was black, or Middle Eastern. So again, I think there's a lot of other questions that this is raising that are equally interesting. All right, so the next article,
after a little jingle.
You have a week off and you're a little rusty. Next article is from GameSpot. In a full circle movement, Helldivers 2 has helped more people discover Starship Troopers. So,
okay, what are you talking about?
here we go. All right, well, to get you in the mood, here is the Helldivers 2 official The Story So Far trailer.
Okay.
So this will solve all your problems. So this is a video game trailer for Helldivers 2.
Super Earth, bastion of peace, prosperity, and managed democracy. For 100 years, our colonists have toiled happily to enshrine the unquestionable rule of freedom. But now, our enemies rise from the shadows once more. The tyrannical Terminids spread unfettered across the galaxy. The socialist automatons terrorize innocent families. Babes are torn from their mothers. Voters from their ballots. In this time of need, Super Earth once again calls upon her mightiest, bravest, most obedient heroes. The Helldivers. No cost is too high. No sacrifice is too great. You are democracy's most elite, least hesitant defenders. The Terminids will be contained. The automatons dismantled. You will grind our enemies into oblivion. For freedom. For managed democracy. For Super Earth. Join the Helldivers, the galaxy's last line of offense.
Yeah. So that is the Helldivers game. And just to get people to have the kind of mashup, which this article is suggesting, that you can go from that Helldivers escape to Starship Troopers. Here's what many people, has become quite a meme from Starship Troopers. For those that don't remember, Starship Troopers was a movie from the 90s.
Young people from all over the globe are joining up to fight for the future.
I'm doing my part.
I'm doing my part.
I'm doing my part.
I'm doing my part too.
They're doing their part. Are you? Join the mobile infantry and save the world. Service guarantees citizenship.
So what many people thought was really clever with Starship Troopers, the movie, was that it was from a very kind of conservative sci-fi book, Starship Troopers, and they kind of played it straight as a satire of this kind of right-wing, kind of fascist state that was going to war against this bug empire to destroy them. So Helldivers is not in the IP territory of Starship Troopers. It's not at all a licensed game from it, but it's clearly evoking not only the idea of a interspecies war between humans and bug creatures, but also it's diving really deeply into this satire of conservative fascist narrative, right? It's basically a kind of, if you watch that trailer, both trailers actually, are kind of these propaganda war posters from a kind of military dictatorship vibe. So what's interesting about this, you look a bit perplexed though.
What's this thing about humans versus bugs in space? It's the same thing that happens again and again. You've got Ender's Game. You've got the Neil Blomkamp film, which is, I didn't like that film, but whatever.
It's interesting because I think maybe when you think of bugs, you think about that hive collective narrative that underpins it. So that could be considered a very Western dominant trope of bug invasion versus human forces, where you have this kind of surrogate of many people would claim, one reading, being a surrogate of, that communist groupthink socialist state narrative. That the groupthink bug collective, based in nature and science, provides a kind of convenient scapegoat to say, we have the human kind of individualism versus the bug collectivization. So that would strike me as one reason why you'd have bugs as your enemy, because they're so foreign, but also they provide, I think, a kind of subtext which for a right
So a
feet left.
jellyfish.
Well, yeah. I mean, are there jellyfish enemies that we see?
I've not seen one.
You know, but there aren't many water settings for popular fiction. I mean, Aquaman. But we laugh at that.
Yeah.
But you could have the equivalent of jellyfish in space
Yeah, exactly.
attacking. And again, I'd say, yeah, that could equally be similar. But yeah,
As we learnt in the last show, very, very dangerous. the
that's right.
jellyfish.
Yeah. The pain that jellyfish can execute. So that's episode 66, which I have to fix the time delay for still. So after establishing that, what I find really interesting though about the article is one of my favorite media theories was the long tail theory to explain how,
Oh, I remember this. You banged on about this quite a lot in your classes.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, bang on about it now. Do you remember anything about the long tail theory?
Maybe. Is it where something has happened and it has you want to get the longest tail, and so it ends up influencing the most amount of things?
Yeah, you're on the right track. That over time, if you measure the popularity of a text or a song or a movie, if you do it over time, you can be really surprised with what suddenly is seen as successful. It might not be successful at its opening, so Blade Runner being a great example, where it bombed in its opening theatrical release.
Was this the first one?
Blade Runner, yeah, the first one, as well as The Thing, right? A lot of cult films have long tails to them because their initial release is a bomb, but then as it gets traction through either syndication on television, so it'll be on every Saturday, or through VHS or DVD or Blu-ray or streaming, where it's rediscovered by a new audience, it then gets this huge uptick in popularity, and that can tick over. Like Star Trek, for instance, it was cancelled after 2 seasons, but it's considered one of the most successful sci-fi TV franchises. And again, that's that long tail, that even though the studio cancelled it under season 2, it then realized that actually it had a really successful property. So the long tail theory is saying that we should reassess how we judge success in popular culture. That instead of being so fixated on what a release sale is, like what the opening weekend of a movie is to judge its success, if instead we say, well, over 5 to 10 years, how can we
so
say
like,
success?
for example, we've got no listeners now.
Yeah, I would totally use our own show as an example of that. Yeah, our show is grossly under-recognized. But if we zoom out and take maybe 80 a year, I'm going to put all these episodes into time capsules.
Fantastic.
And they'll be discovered and recognized as the Vincent van Gogh geniusness that they represent.
In 80 years, no one will be able to play DVDs anymore. So,
yeah, I'll future-proof it. But Vincent van Gogh would be an example of a long tail, right?
Oh, yeah.
Completely unrecognized in his lifetime, but then an enormous recognition that continues over decades. So here we have an example of long tail theory in terms of how this one is about explaining how the long tail mechanics can work where one text triggers another text. So you've got the Helldivers 2 video game, which is becoming very successful, but there's nothing about the Helldivers 2 promotion or text which says, to understand what's going on here, you need to have first read or watched Starship Troopers.
is there a Helldivers 1?
Hey, why not? I assume there is. I've not played it. I imagine it would be weird to put 2 there if there wasn't a 1 already.
Yeah, okay.
So let's assume there is. So what's interesting here, though, is not that Helldivers 2 has caused a lot of people to discover Helldivers 1. Instead, it's got them to discover this completely tangential text, Starship Troopers. And so the article goes on to talk about how, according to online TV ratings tracker, television stats, via Eurogamer, interest in Starship Troopers began to spike around February 18th. I don't know why you were on February 18th, but I was definitely starting to follow this. And it continued to climb since then. And at the time of writing, which was the February 20th of 2024, it was the 25th most popular film online. Game director Johan Pilsted has a brief response on Twitter. "This is incredible," he said. So again, obviously Helldivers 2 was borrowing from a lot of texts, including Warhammer 40k, it says in the article, but the whole idea of overzealously preaching about, you know, protecting democracy has a really strong Starship Troopers vibe. So it was that kind of resonance that then people went back into saying, yeah, I'd really love to watch that film again. So it's a really fascinating example. Again, sometimes like the long tail theory was based on, I think it's the Into the Void TV drama, or film, sorry, which came out, which is based on a true story. The film came out. The film got people interested in the book, which had come out 12 years before the film, but had only met, you know, lukewarm interest. The book's tons more interesting than the film and caused the book to become a bestseller.
Wow.
Yeah. So similarly here, I mean, Starship Troopers is nicely remembered, but yeah, fascinating how something can trigger going back to the mothership property. Talking of motherships, this is I just want to play a couple of clips from this, because again, it's an interesting moment of having a what's defined as a long tail and the mothership. This article is from Crack, talking about Andrew Dice Clay's Notorious bomb became a hit overseas by recasting Andrew Dice Clay. So I don't know if you remember Andrew Dice Clay. He was a comedian in the 80s. So incredibly dated, but this film
gotta put him in, man.
that he made, which was
I told you I can't wear those things. I wear them, it's just in my head and I need to be here.
Yeah, The Adventures of Ford Fairlane was absolutely trashed when it was released. We said that it was an absolutely shocking film. Had some
Bill Murray plays a Manhattan bank robber who wears a clown disguise.
You know,
anyway, they said that.
This week on Cisco and Ebert. I'm Gene Siskel of the Chicago
gave the movie 2 thumbs down, calling it another waste of time. New York Times' Jeanette Maslin wrote, the person most likely to be entertained by The Adventures of Ford Fairlane need not be made aware of the film's existence. He's already on the screen. Which I'm assuming means that either there's only one person that would be interested in watching it, which is Andrew Dice Clay, or they're on the screen.
I can't leave, so I'll be in my car.
So again, what's interesting here though is this film bombed, but it became really people chose to dub it. So they talk about in Hungary, so but the was on mostly forgotten. The Adventures of Ford Fairlane, however, became a low-key phenomenon, specifically post-communist Hungary, where it had a second life thanks to the actors that dubbed.
Elnézést! Meg tudnád mondani, hogy jutunk el a kínai mozihoz?
Menj vissza Michiganbe, seggfej.
The frontman of the band,
Én meg az apám farkából, a tűnés.
You've not heard him play a little bit of that.
Hé, Bunko, remélem nyertem. Persze, faszom, megáll.
Music, and then he dubbed over the top of it, so we'll hear a little bit of his dubbing.
Hogy akkor miért vagyok? Miért akarom, hogy a popszakma, meg ugye az egész világ kapja be a faszomat?
Hogy van csak basztatsz engem?
Ide figyelj! Ha még egyszer ilyen csúnyán beszél, hogy pofán baszlak, hogy nyekkelsz. Megértetted? A tűnés a picsába. Basszaszom! Ilyen buzi, a seggelől is lenyúzta a bőr. Hé, faszkola! Hé, kajásfiú, hol van? Basszad meg a kurva anyádról! Szemét állat!
minute, but I mean, Hungarian, there might be a Hungarian audience out there that's enjoying it. What's interesting about the Hungarian dub was that the Rockstar's like the way he delivered it was just extremely off. Yeah, which made it even more hilarious that he gave a very loose interpretation of the material and hit it.
I can get used to this shit.
He was kind of loosely interpreted and used a lot of language which even then became part of the slang language of Hungarian youth in the 90s. So similarly, it was similarly popular in Norway, where it became a hit on the home video market, and in Spain, where Dice Clay was again replaced by popular musician, singer and comedian Pablo Cordonell. And it was due to this kind of dubbing that it became popular in Hungary, Norway, Spain.
That reminds me of a particular anime. I think it's called Ghost Stories or something like that. And it was so run-of-the-mill, and they were dubbing it into English, and the script was so bad that the actors, the voice actors, just decided to ad-lib most of it and turn it into a comedy, and it's actually bloody hilarious.
Yes, there are some, I know there was an Australian film that took the Italian Hercules movie and did a film about them having to dub over the top of it without knowing exactly what the script is and just improvise a dubbing over. I forget what that's called, Hercules something or other. And yeah, so again, I think it can be quite an art to be able to dub over the top of the film. And within that, there can be quite a bit of comedy. And the voice actors attached to those projects can, in a way, be much more influential than the original American or Australian actors that gave that first performance. But sometimes it's not the mothership which defines the value of that text. It's the media. It's the
fortunately located nearby and nicely played by Julian Sands,
which will be our spin-off show. All right, Can It Run Doom? Last article of the show. So this is a fun article which is talking about the phenomena of basically testing the technology by running Doom on it. Have you come across anything that became interesting because Doom ran on it? I can't remember what it was. I think there was like a tractor or something.
I'm pretty sure I saw one, and it was like on like a keyboard or something like that. And there was like a tiny little LCD screen, and it was usually just used for putting the volume up and down and showing the numbers on there, and someone had put Doom on that.
So this is an article at ARS, and yes, they say they've covered in the past examples of it happening on hacked printers, Windows Notepad.exe, a version running inside Doom itself, so someone ran Doom inside Doom. But these and many other varied examples are not as odd as the latest thing that's achieved Doom on it, which is displaying the game using a grid of E. coli bacteria. MIT graduate student Lauren Rainan outlined this method, so we'll play a bit of a clip where she talks about how she took the 1-bit pixels encoded in E. coli for the display of interactive media for her research project and managed to get it to kind of bring up the opening screen for Doom. So it's a bit of a liberty to say it can play Doom, but I guess it can get scenes from Doom to appear, and it's a bit vague. Anyway, we'll listen a bit to the intro. So again, I think it's a great example of someone doing PhD and then thinking of a way of communicating that research. So this is the shoot now. We'll hear a little bit about them talking about what their project is.
His ghost stays on the scene, however, and discovers that he wasn't a victim of random violence. He was murdered. The ghost uses a psychic played by Whoopi Goldberg in an attempt to communicate this idea to the Moore, but at first Moore
in the modern era.
Unconvinced.
This is a time that is a variety of surprising devices, from ATM machines to MacBook touch bars, pregnancy tests,
and pregnancy tests,
even Legos. Some modders have even figured out a way to run Doom inside of Doom itself.
Of course.
With Doom's supremacy in the electronic sector secured, it was time to imagine new mediums on which to run the game. With the rise of the biotech sector in the 21st century, some clever scientists started imagining ways to integrate biology with Doom. In August of 2023, the YouTube channel The Thought Emporium released a video proposing a method by which neurons grown on a chip could be trained to play Doom. This idea was based off of existing coded in E. coli by growing engineered cells in a 1,000...
So it goes through a bit of other science which is done, and then it talks about how she grew these E. coli on a kind of petri dish, and there's some maths, and then there's a bit of coding, looks like from GitHub, and a great Visual Studio. Oh, I'm just trying to get to the bit where we
mixture of humor and the supernatural.
That's the end.
I also like the whole goodness of using Goldberg to communicate with his lover, Demi Moore.
To achieve peak image.
That the movie could have been so much brighter and smarter than it is. Demi Moore is so reluctant to believe that her late boyfriend is really talking to her through Goldberg that after a while it actually get annoying. I mean, how much
fantastic. Basically, it's just a screeching
sound. To look through a door and say, that's the T-shirt that you were wearing when your husband filled a margarita
but yeah,
on, and then
actually, yes, no, quite interesting. That phenomenon. Yeah, I don't think I don't think you hear it, but there is, yes. There is hope with us to unleash my plan, which is to get a playable version of Doom on the 99.3 FM signal. So as people will be listening to it on audio, they will be playing Doom.
Next PhD project.
I think that would be very interesting, right? Playing Doom on audio.
Could it be done?
I think here at Media Mothership,
if anywhere's going to do it,
we'll set up a fundraiser. That could have been an example. Doom audio signal there. So yes, what I'll do, because I'm pretty sure I've come across someone that's been able to figure out how to get an audio signal as the Doom game. And you can kind of, like, you send it out as an audio track, and then you can bring it up on your computer monitor as the waveform, and the waveform is the Doom game. Alright, I'm pretty sure. I'll see if I can dig up that audio and play it.
Could you play it?
Well, you need to still then get that waveform from the audio represented on the model. So you still need a bit of software that can take this sound that we're broadcasting over YouTube and Twitch and the FM signal and on demand on Edge Radio, and then visualize that.
Well, I'm not going to stop until I can take photos with my eye.
I reckon that's a grant. That's fantastic. Well, you know, UTA's always looking for innovative media science. Very exciting. Okay, feel free to keep listening now to Edge Radio. What do you reckon? So what have we learned from today's journey?
We've learned that Gemini is racist. We've learned that some people have got too much time on their hands and making one Doom run on things. We've learned that old things getting new interest in them, even though they're bad. I've never seen it.
And the long tail, We all can enjoy long tails. So this has been Dr. Craig and Lord Taylor with accreditation for Media Mothership on Edge Radio. Show notes will be available on the episode description on YouTube and Twitch, or your podcast provider of choice. Next week we are we on that?
I don't know, but that's my favourite.
And I lost track of them.
I don't know if I'm on that. You can listen to previous episodes on YouTube, Twitch, and at edgeradio.org.au. Find out more about Media Mothership on Facebook and Instagram. Keep listening out to Edge Radio. Coming up next week, K-Pop Unlimited with DJ TJ and DJ CJ.
Let me check if we're on antenna.
Another client is a rich woman played
All right.
by Priscilla Presley, who also has a problem that needs solving.
So make yourself comfortable.